My presentation is called Generations of Change. My storyline will take us on a journey of 4 generations. What I do want to share for this video is that there are generations of change, and that's part of my purpose of being here to talk about the generations of change. I wanted to talk about my father and myself, my son Tyrone, and my grandson Kieran. I'd like to start off with a bit of the story of my father, who was born December 7th, 1919. I would believe that he was sent to a residential school probably around 1926. Him and his siblings were sent out of province to Roberta, Saskatchewan. My father never spoke to us much about the years that he grew up. But what I do remember of him is that growing up in the family, we were always scared of him for some reason. From what I do know of his journey was that after he had come out of residential school, he had lied his way into the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm very proud of my father that he was in the service and he served for his country, and he was actually wounded twice. And I actually don't know how long he spent in the service. That's one of the things my father would never allow anybody to talk about World War II. From what I learned was that at the time when he had went into the Canadian Armed Services, there was a policy called enfranchisement. That meant that any Aboriginal person in Canada joining the armed services would automatically lose their treaty rights. So before I was born, the 12 children that came after my father was in the service, we did not have status. My father stayed in the service, and our family grew up around army bases. We grew up around a small place called Rivers Camp, north of Brandon, and then east of Brandon, a place called Shiloh. It wasn't until I was about maybe 3 or 4 when I remember my parents doing a lot of drinking. From that time on, there was probably say a lot of ugliness that I had seen within the home, a lot of violence, a lot of abuse in many different forms. 6 of my older brothers and sisters were sent also to residential school. They went to Birtle Residential School in southwestern Manitoba. I don't want to dwell on the ugliness too much, but what I do remember is the other abuse from my siblings, our relatives, our family members that they inflicted on us younger ones that didn't go to residential school. Most of this was sexual abuse. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I think at that time I knew that I didn't want to be like my father because of all the violence and what I had seen in the home. I knew that at that time that I wanted to be a father that my children wouldn't be scared of. Even though I'm proud of my father, I had to look back and see what his journey was like. My father is 94 today. I guess I can probably also say my father hasn't spoken to me in about 28 years. Because I started talking about these issues probably about around that time. And I was in a speaking group that spoke, and the federal government had asked to publish my story. I talked about breaking the cycle of abuse, and of course part of that was talking about my father and about the abuse issue. So he got upset with me at that time, and he quit talking to me. What I want to talk about next is I want to talk about my oldest boy, Tyrone, who's 30, married to Andrea. They both live and work in New York. When he was born, I wanted to give him a gift. Because I really had nothing of material or money, the gift that I had given to him at that time was I promised him at the Women's Pavilion when they wheeled him out when I was looking at him. And at that time, he was probably about maybe 4 or 5 hours old. I promised him that I would never drink again and I'd never allow alcohol in my house. And it's been 30 years now. I had texted him and asked him if he could share some of his views about having me as a father, and this is what he has to say about me.
It was good having you as my dad. From an early age, you made it clear that I could count on you for anything I needed. I knew that if I ever wanted anything, I could count on you for your support. You took me traveling a lot and showed me other places and cultures in the world that helped me realize life outside my own bubble. You tried to show me the Aboriginal ways the best you could throughout the years, and I appreciate that. You've always had a great work ethic, and I think that has helped me know what it is to do hard work. When I was a teenager, we had a few rocky times, but I suppose that is how it is for any teenager. I read that teenagers need to distance themselves to learn who they really need to be. As time goes on, though, you're growing and maturing into a father that I'm very proud of, and I often tell Andrea, in the last few years, my dad has turned into a pretty cool guy. You've spent the last 15 years shedding your past family pains, and this has helped you become an even better father. I appreciate all the support in the last few years. This has helped me become the man I am today, someone who isn't afraid to show my feelings or chase my dreams and someone who has the courage to take on the world.
That quote that my son had just said, that when I had first read it, really kind of touched my heart. I think I've done a really good job bringing up my son Tyrone. Next, I wanted just to talk about my grandson Kieran, who was 6 years old, and I asked him what it was like having me as a grandpa. And what he had said to me was, well, first of all, he said, you buy me anything I want, he said, you take me out many times. You taught me how to swim, and you've taught me how to dance powwow. He said, I like when you and I travel to powwows, he said, and I get paid money just to dance, he says. Yeah, I said, I just love being around you all the time, and I can't wait for powwow season to start up again. So that's basically, in a nutshell, 4 generations, my father, myself, my son, and my grandson, and I think that shows that with a lot of forgiveness and dealing with pain and shame and being a good person from the heart makes a difference in the next couple of generations. And what I've been told by our elders is that it'll take us 7 generations, and I think this is the 4th generation right now that I'm sharing right now.